Hi, and welcome to Journey Forward with Jory Rose, where you will gain insights, tools, and inspiration to get unstuck and live your best life. Jory is a licensed marriage and family therapist with a passion for helping people cultivate awareness and authenticity so they can show up fully in all aspects of their life. And now, here's Jory.
Hey everyone, I really hope that you enjoyed this episode with Shonda talking all about mindfulness and tools to access our breath so we can be more calm and present both for ourselves and our kids, because this is a lot about motherhood. And if you are a mom who is wanting to revitalize, rediscover, renew your own identity outside of your role as being a mom, then check out the link in my show notes for my upcoming masterclass, What Now? This is for women who are maybe at a big transition in their motherhood, such as a kid going off to college, but really every step of the journey of our own motherhood is an opportunity to get really present and to understand who we are outside of the identity of how we're showing up as a mom. So check out the link in the show notes. And I really hope that you enjoy this episode with Shonda. I know I really did. Hey everyone, and welcome back to this week's episode of Journey Forward with Jory Rose. I am so looking forward to my conversation with our guest today, Shonda Moralis, who is, we've been connected on social media. We were just saying for quite some time. I think we run in the same circles of our interests and our passions and the work that we do. So I know that all that's going to unfold in today's conversation is going to feel so aligned and just one of those soul-filling conversations, which is honestly why I love doing this podcast. So, Shonda, please introduce yourself. Welcome to being on the show and tell our listeners, what is your journey? How did you get to where you are? I know it's a really big question, so however you want to go ahead and whatever feels aligned in your answer, I'd love for you to share.
Sure. So I'm really happy to be here with you, Jory. And yes, we were trying to figure that out, but here we are. So it's great. And we're finally talking in person. So I am an author and a life balance coach and a therapreneur, I like to say. And I have my own podcast too, called Therapeutic Perspective Podcast, where therapists can earn continuing ed credits for listening. That's fun. So I, like you, would love connecting with all kinds of interesting people. So I am going to say that I got into therapy as a psychotherapist about 25 years ago, a little bit more. And and I guess to back up or fill it in, I have two kids, and my daughter is 20 and my son is 10. And so I came across mindfulness as part of just reading as part of therapy when my daughter was about 3. And I was intrigued because I felt like, in the therapy world, cognitive behavioral therapy is sort of the standard, the gold standard. Yeah. And it's all about, our thoughts and how it affects our behavior. And I felt like mindfulness was this really important piece that had been missed in therapy. So I wanted to learn more. And I enrolled in my local hospital's 8-week mindfulness-based stress reduction program. So this is a world-renowned program. It's been around for 35 or so years. And part of the homework is to meditate for a half an hour every day. So I am a people pleaser, recovering perfectionist, like do as I'm told. So I faithfully meditated. Go ahead. Did you want to say something?
I was going to say, yeah, that is a really high standard to start off with learning meditation.
It is. But I was like, okay, this is for 8 weeks.
This is what they said to do. So I'm going to go ahead and do it.
And they told me that's the homework. So, okay, what choice do I have?
You're a very good student, Shonda.
I was. I've learned to relax a little bit, but back then, and it was a good thing in some ways. So a half an hour every day, I was faithfully meditating. And I noticed very quickly with just a few weeks that I was more patient with my daughter, who was 3. I was more tolerant. I slowed down just a notch, but I was actually more productive and more efficient. So I was
the magic.
Exactly. Because, I was skeptical, like really, and I had been practicing yoga very seriously. So I had some, understanding of this, but to really experience it. And I always tell people, you have to really try it out and experiment with it to get it, because it's like anything.
It's so conceptual and esoteric that you can't really quantify or even qualify what you gain.
Right.
You can tell people, but they're going to be like, okay, that doesn't really make sense. You're just sitting and breathing. What does that actually mean? What's
Exactly.
going to change? Yeah.
Exactly. Right. So I continued to practice and went through teacher training. I ended up teaching in that hospital's program for a number of years, that the
Did you
MBSR
teach
class.
MBSR?
I did. Yep. And used mindfulness in therapy in my office, which was kind of my original part of my purpose. So fast forward then at the time when my daughter is about to turn 10 and I'm about to have my son. And I know from experience, I won't be meditating for a half an hour every day with a newborn. There's just no way. So I wanted to keep mindfulness in my life in some very practical, flexible ways. And that's where I came up with the 5-minute mindful breaks that we'll talk about, I'm sure. And I was also teaching this to women, other busy moms, and finding that just 5 minutes, it didn't need to be 30. 5 minutes can make such a difference. And it was quite radical. So I continued to teach and I ended up writing my first book, Breathe Mama Breathe, 5-minute mindfulness for busy moms.
I love the title.
Yeah. Yeah. And then, my son was going to preschool and kind of getting ready for elementary. And I had a little bit more free time on my hands. And I was kind of like, what am I interested in? Where is my curiosity leading me, which is always where I like to go. And it kind of circled back to women's empowerment, women's issues, which I had worked with very much when I was in my early to mid 20s. And my daughter, becoming a teenager, was very much into social justice and women's issues and feminism. And so it was kind of relighting my fire again. So I wrote my second book, and now it's coming out as a new edition, Don't Forget to Breathe. And this is dozens more of these mindful breaks geared more toward women in general. Rather than simply moms, especially moms in the kind of the trenches with little ones.
I love it. I mean, your journey, first of all, there's so much overlap with you and I just feel like it's that soul sister connection of I get you, I see you, I've been you, I understand you. And I actually was trained in MBSR as well. And life-changing. I mean, it's just life-changing. And the simplicity of I'm just breathing. I say to everybody, if I teach a class or a course or just my clients I work with, or even podcast episodes when I'm a guest on it, I'm like, if you take nothing else away, take a minute and just breathe. Like that's more than enough.
Right. Because we're not breathing fully and we're not present in our lives, right? When we don't stop and take those breaths. And so it does sound way too simplistic, but it's not.
No, and as I always say, it's simple but not easy.
Yep.
Right. And it's something that we are always naturally doing, but we're not consciously connecting. Without that conscious connection to it, we're not harnessing the benefits.
Right.
So what are some of the 5-minute mindful breaks? Because I love that, when I first was doing the same work, and it was about 10 years ago that I did my MBSR retreat with John Kabat-Zinn, and
maybe that's where we know each other. I don't know. But that was for me, it's maybe 15 years ago, but okay.
Okay. So you were a little bit before me.
Yeah.
So when I was not as good as a student as you, because I came home from my MBSR retreat for 7 days. And then about 3 months later, I did a 5-day silent Buddhist meditation retreat. And that was a really interesting experience. And here I was at the time, stay-at-home mom, 2 young girls, kind of that typical busy suburban mom. And I was kind of like, fuck that. I don't have 30 to 40 minutes a day. And if I did, I can pretty much guarantee I'm not going to spend it in meditation. Like I just couldn't wrap my head around it. It felt so unattainable. So I really honor that you took that to heart, because it was a quicker, I think, jump for you to make it your own. But it took me a little bit longer for me to make it my own and figure out how to meet myself where I was at in a way to make it authentic, to gain the benefit from meditation.
Right.
Whatever the journey is, we both got there. And I think that's a great thing to share with our listeners, that you can, work at one end or build to the other. And as long as you're doing it, I always say there's no such thing as a perfect meditation. The best meditation is the one you show up for.
Definitely. Well, that's what I talk about too, is making it super flexible and easy. And so I'm a huge proponent of 5 minutes of meditation a day. And if you can't do that, seriously, if that feels too much or too hard, I say 1 minute or get up and take 3 deep breaths. It's about the habit, the daily practice, because then you pull yourself
100%.
out of automatic pilot, right? And off that hamster wheel of nonstop motion. And that's really what it's about. So if you can stretch it out, great. But, and those of us who are more high achievers or recovering perfectionists, we tend to be like, wow, okay, so that sounds really important. So I should just start doing 45 minutes a day. I mean, we have people we work with like that too, right? But really, it's more about that daily habit. And it can, and I try to demystify it and try to really make it something that's fun and playful and we can experiment with and not take ourselves so seriously.
Seriously, right?
Yes.
And, one of the things that I love harnessing these tools. And I'd like to speak for a moment because, by the time this episode comes out, we'll be a little bit further into the school year. But as you and I are talking right now, right, early September, all that schedule is back in. And it always seems like from September till December, the mad rush is on, whether it's back to school and the next thing you know, Halloween candy and decorations are out. And then it's like fast forward ahead through the holidays. And it's really easy to feel as this momentum builds that the energy and frenetic kind of the automatic pilot energy in the household with kids, with the school year, it just seems to amp up.
Mm-hmm.
So I love that we're talking about this now because to me, the beginning of the year, it always feels more like September than January from a calendar school year. I'm Jewish, so from the Jewish holiday perspective, it's always very much like this is the beginning of the new year, not necessarily in January when we're in the middle of our schedule. So it's a great time to set some new intentions, create some new habits. But I love being able to talk about how is this also affecting our families? And so share a little bit in your experience as you're gearing your intentions of your work towards busy moms. What's the benefit that the kids can reap and what some of your personal experiences and for our listeners, because as a therapist, I get people to call me all the time and say, hey, can you work with my kids? My kids got this, this, and this. Yes, and I prefer to work with the parent because they're the ones who can actually shift more of the culture of the home and change the trajectory of the emotional temperature in the home, so to speak. So what would you say to all that?
Yeah, I would say, I think to this morning when I sent my son off to school this morning, it was one of those mornings and I'm doing a podcast tour right now to promote my book. So there have been a lot of extra interviews and things on my plate than I normally would have. So I knew coming into this season that the balance was going to be a little off. And I talk a lot about life balance, that I knew it was going to be, my plate was going to be quite full. And I was intentional about that and trying to manage it as best I can. But it was one of those mornings where I had a lot. And my son, I was like, I just felt it in my voice. Normally we have relaxed mornings and we hang out together and it's we play a little basketball before the bus shows up, this kind of thing. And I was like, you've got to go. You're running. The bus is going to be here in 10 minutes and you have to get, one of those mornings that I'm sure we can all relate to. And it really was like a brief moment. And he was like, and he, spilled the fish food and, was trying to clean that up. And then I had to stop, take a breath and say, bud, I'm sorry. Like I'm rushing you. I'm feeling some stress. But right there it was such a minor moment, but it was so clear to me that it was my stress, my feeling of overwhelm in that moment or feeling rushed that just completely he just completely picked up on it. And our kids are little sponges, they pick all of this up. Human beings are the mirror neurons. We can't help it. And some of our kids are more sensitive than others for sure.
Sure.
So,
and that goes both ways. We pick up on their energy as much as they're picking up on ours, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. We can't not. And so anytime we have that awareness, and I've been, like my daughter is going to be 21 soon. So I've been doing this for a long time and that was a good moment, I would say, because I caught myself and I was able to just quickly kind of say, hey, but there are times we don't. So it's, even though we teach this, we all still are guilty of it or, can fall prey to it. And so it's just the best we can is catching ourselves and then forgiving ourselves, making that little repair or whatever we need to do and kind of start fresh in that moment.
I love that. And the key there for me is, as you described that, it's the awareness of when you've lost the intention. Right. And I define mindfulness. If I were to bring it down to one word, I simply define it as awareness. Like my personal definition is awareness, attention, intention. And I go more further into that. But awareness to me is what it's all about. And people often say, like, so am I supposed to be aware like all the time? Like, okay, that's impossible. But to me, it's about the moment you recognize you're no longer aware. That is, to me, the mindful moment. And then you have the choice to stay distracted or to stay on autopilot. Just do so consciously.
Right.
Or to choose to come back into awareness and do so consciously.
Right. Well, it's that pause where you say, what is my choice? I do have choice versus not having choice. And
exactly.
Yeah. And I like to define mindfulness. I like to add on that the kindness piece, it's awareness with an attitude of kindness as best we can. I love that. Because I think that's the part that gets missed. I can be in the moment and I can be judging myself like we, especially women tend to do. Really.
Oh, yes. Which is, I have to say, I have issue with Jon Kabat-Zinn's definition of mindfulness, in which he says non-judgmentally, because I'm like, okay, hello, I'm a judgmental person. I'm human. Right. So as soon as I hear the word non-judgmental in the definition, it's so easy to think, oh, well, but wait, I can't do that, or I do that all the time, so I must not be good at this. Therefore, I shouldn't try to build that muscle. So I agree. And to me, compassion is the opposite of judgment. Right. So if we're having awareness with judgment, we stay stuck in a spiral. Awareness with compassion gets us right out of it.
Right.
Or makes it at least a little bit easier to get us out of it.
Right. Because if we're expecting that we're not going to judge, then we judge our judging, right? Which is what we're also really good at. So it's so fun. Yeah.
Oh, being human is so hard. So what would be an example of some of the 5-minute mindful breaks that you teach?
Well, in my latest book, Don't Forget to Breathe, I have 3 types. There are breathe breaks, which help us promote calm and awareness. There are the becoming breaks, which is when we need a shot of assertiveness or confidence, when we're feeling some self-doubt. And then there are balance breaks, which are pretty much what they sound like, which is bringing us back into balance. So an example of a breathe.
I love those, by the way.
Yeah. Well,
we're having a barking break.
yes, exactly.
I must be getting some delivery of some kind. So, there you go. Sorry about the description.
Oh, well, she's usually pretty quiet when down. I'm actually recording in the basement, which is why, because I have one too.
Okay, so go ahead and tell me a little bit more, because I love those.
Yeah. And so the purpose, what I'm thinking about when I have this framework of 3 types of breaks is that we are trying to create life balance. That's overall kind of my overarching mission, is helping women create life balance. And, then there's this whole discussion, which we can get into, of, is there such a thing? Is it possible? And we can talk about that. What I see is that, it's this ongoing gentle recalibration of our priorities through the seasons of life, which always change, and it can change moment to moment. So when we
say that again slowly, I want to repeat that. Ongoing. Say that again.
It's a gentle, ongoing recalibration of our priorities as we move through the seasons of life. So
I love that. It's such a beautiful intention.
Yeah. And so, in any moment or a phase of life, I might really need more of these calm breaks. I need to just kind of calm my nervous system down. I'm feeling overwhelmed. It's just a lot. There are times where we feel like, for example, if I'm working outside the home full time and I take on a new position, I have a promotion, and I feel like, oh my gosh, all this imposter syndrome or self-doubt is showing up, then I need more of those confidence. I need more assertiveness, because that's what I'm craving in my life at that time. And then there are times where we just need to kind of recalibrate the balance. And so I see it as pulling out whatever is needed. And then it's this upward spiral of growth as we move through those seasons of life. Go ahead.
Can I ask a question on that? First of all, again, I love that. And being able to harness what you need, and then, like you said, that positive upward spiral that leads us towards, whether it's more authenticity, more alignment, more fulfillment, because we're feeling not uncalibrated, but in this balance. So I'm curious, in your experience and as a therapist and working with women, because that's mainly my focus as well, many women don't know what they need. So what would you say to women who are like, okay, I feel totally out of balance, and I actually don't know where the hell to start?
That's right.
And I find that for many women, that actually creates more imbalance and more anxiety or frustration or fear or judgment. because they're like, I know I need something, but I don't know what the hell it is. How do I begin?
Yeah. Well, I would say I have a two-pronged approach, which is to start a meditation practice. And again, 5 minutes or 1 minute every morning. Just use a guided voice, use an app. You can go on my website or you can use any kind of guided meditation. And let that be an opportunity to get still and quiet, because there's no way we're going to know what we need unless we stop and get still and quiet for a few minutes and start to learn to pay attention. You're muted still.
Oh, can you hear me now? Okay. Yeah, absolutely. Unless otherwise we're up in our heads.
Yeah.
And we have literally no idea how to even tune into those needs. Because there's often is it what other people need? Or is it what others need of me versus what I need for myself?
Or what I've been so conditioned to do.
And that takes self-inquiry.
Yeah, exactly. So it's the first piece is just a daily meditation habit, 1 minute, 5 minutes, whatever that looks like. And then start with one mindful break from my book. I have dozens in there and we'll talk more specifically what those are. One mindful break, and you can practice that every day for a week or two, and that becomes a habit. Or, you pull, depending on what you need from the book, you can pull out a different one, but just one. And then once that starts to become more of a habit, you sprinkle on another mindful break. And before you know it, your day is sprinkled with these mindful breaks, pulling you out of automatic pilot, and you are more tuned into yourself. But it's a practice. It's like anything, and you know that, and we teach that, which is
it's building a muscle.
Yeah, exactly. And you can't just throw yourself in the pool and never having been swimming before and expect to just start freestyling.
Right.
So you have to practice. So it is a bit of a, just being curious. And again, with that playful attitude, with that attitude of amusement, rather than oh my gosh, taking ourselves so seriously. What are my answers here? And it starts to become more clear over time.
I like that, with that, it's like, I get to do this versus I have to do this.
Right.
Absolutely. Right. Having that mindset shift. And I like how you're bringing playfulness and amusement into it, because otherwise it's really hard to meet ourselves where we're at with a gentleness and a kindness and getting out of that harsh inner critic voice.
Yep.
Right. That's the playfulness you're referring to, right? Is to quiet down the voice inside of us that is not so kind and sounds like someone we wouldn't want to spend time with.
Right, exactly. So when we do get quiet and sit there for just a few minutes with a guided voice in the beginning, it's helping us bring our attention back. We recognize all kinds of body sensations. And I'm sure from MBSR, we teach the triangle of awareness. And that's one of the mindful breaks I talk about, which is our thoughts, our body sensations, and our emotions. And 3 points on the triangle, how they impact one another. But, just by tuning in on a regular basis, deliberately, a brief body scan, what am I noticing in these different parts of my body is all kinds of information. Because if I pull myself right out of bed when my alarm goes off and I hop and get my coffee and I'm, boom, I'm on that hamster wheel of nonstop motion, I don't recognize that what I sit down and notice during those 5 minutes is, oh, I feel some pressure on my chest. What's up here, right? That's a clue that it's sort of subtle maybe for me that I don't recognize. And then I might be, I'm feeling anxious. What's up? What's going on here, right? That's information. So again, bringing that sense of curiosity and investigation rather than what's wrong with me or I need to fix this right away. It allows us to just notice and take it in as information. And then we start to know ourselves more and more.
And then with that, we get more access to our choice to be able to say, okay, so what do I want to do with this?
Exactly.
Versus denying, dismissing, ignoring, pushing down, judging, externalizing. And then we have, I think, that greater sense of your own self-awareness through that curiosity and compassion of oh, wait, nothing's wrong with me for feeling this. This is just part of being human. And I have a choice on how I respond to this right now.
Exactly. And sometimes I don't need to do anything in this moment, right? Just holding space for that is helpful too.
Sure.
So a coffee mindful break is something so simple, but so many people love coffee or tea in the morning and just feeling the warmth of the mug, the texture, using your senses to bring that cup to your nose and smell the aroma, and then tasting that first sip, feeling the warmth down your throat into your stomach, and how different that is from then how we tend to drink our coffee otherwise, which is while we're doing many other things, multitasking, and we're like, oh, my coffee is empty. I didn't even recognize I had that.
Or it was cold, or
yes. So those are examples. The triangle, tune in, kind of tuning into what's in our triangle, our thoughts, body sensations, and emotions, or a coffee mindful break. Those are examples of breathe breaks. An example of a becoming break is one called, I'm trying to think which one. So the green-eyed monster is one that I think is helpful. And it's about this story is my neighbor. Right before COVID, I was like schlepping it into my office with my lunch and my briefcase and everything. And I had just put my son on the bus and I was rushing for my first client of the day. And I look over as I'm pulling out of my driveway and I see my friend, who is my neighbor, strolling with her dog in the sunshine with her cup of coffee. And I was like, oh my gosh, that looks so good. Right. And I was jealous because I really wanted to be doing that in that moment. And then I started judging myself, like, what's wrong with you? You know, she's not sitting around eating bonbons on her couch all day and you like your work. So, then I kind of just paused, took a few breaths and checked in what was underneath all this and recognized, like, of course, I didn't want her life. I like what I do. It was just that life was feeling too hectic, too overscheduled in that moment. So I knew I wanted to have a little bit of space to feel like I had 15 minutes to go walk my dog in the sunshine at a leisurely pace, which I wasn't feeling at that time. So I went to my office and at my lunch break, kind of looked ahead a few weeks and then started scheduling in these spaces, these white spaces in my calendar. So it just wasn't so overscheduled. So it's this quick mindful break of checking in when we recognize we're feeling envy or jealousy and noticing what that is and what is it that I'm craving. It's not that I necessarily want their life, but I might want a piece of that. Do I want financial security? Do I want more time? Do I want, whatever that is?
Right.
And then what's one small action step I can take to move in that direction rather than
I love it.
Overwhelming ourselves with how do I get all the way over there or whatever. It's what's the first step? And that's it.
Yeah.
Start there. So again, a quick break.
It's so simple and yet not always easy.
Right.
But what for those listening, with greater practice, these tools, these practices do become more second nature because they become more available to you in the moments when you recognize staying stuck in the spiral of the green-eyed monster of jealousy or envy or, anger or even like self-pity in those moments. Actually take more time than doing the actual practice. Like people say to me all the time, but like, Joy, I don't really have time to be mindful. And I'm like, well, you have plenty of time to be angry and stressed that you didn't schedule time for that on your calendar. And it's taking an awful lot of energy. So what would happen if you harnessed your energy somewhere where you wanted it to go? Like it's no extra time. It's just shifting.
That's right. Right. And you're absolutely right about that. And the more you do it, the more it becomes second nature. So this is something that when we're learning it, like any new skill feels like we're pushing that boulder up the mountain at first, but then it just really becomes almost automatic.
Yeah. And I find too, it's helpful for people to continue to push the boulder at first when they're really clear on what's my intention? Like what's the outcome, which simultaneously having non-attachment to the outcome, but still holding space for this is why I'm doing what I'm doing so that I have a greater balance, so that I can feel more assertive and less, at whim to whatever hardship gets thrown my way. And I feel self-destruction in my own negative spiral thinking, right? So I think that's a really hard piece sometimes is to know, well, I know I just don't want to feel like this anymore.
Yeah. It's our why. And then knowing where we're going too, right? You always want to try to pause and have a vision of, okay, rather than just getting pulled along, like you were saying, especially this time of the year in the fall season, it's like, we can just feel like we're getting pulled in this, like, I want to say a stream. It's like a rapids, and we're kind of just like keeping our head above water. Yeah. So rather, how can I be kind of charting my course as well. And that's sort of this piece. And again, these very, very small shifts, small practices, because otherwise we get overwhelmed and then we don't do anything. And then we're just stuck.
What would be an example of one of the balance breaks?
So the balance brake, I think of, the gas pedal or the brake is one of them, and sort of like just checking in again with ourselves and assessing the speed of our lives right now. Like, do I need to, because the thing about balance, and we think about mindfulness that I hear a lot, is it's not all about calming down. It's not all about, Shavasana corpse pose at the end of yoga, which is awesome. But, we don't want to be zenned out all the time. It's this sort of relaxed alertness. We want energy too. So there are times
relaxed alertness. Yeah.
Yeah. There are times when our lives feel lackluster or kind of boring. And we're like, I need an injection of something here. Right. So, that's a time when you hit the gas pedal. It's like, hey, I decided I'm going to sign up for this mini triathlon or something. Hey, I've always wanted to do that. Why not? Or, maybe I do need to put the brakes on because I have overscheduled myself or, said yes to too many things, checking in with our boundaries, that sort of thing. And then sometimes life throws the emergency brake on for us, whether we like it or not. And we're like, everything comes to a complete halt. And you're like, okay, that was decided for me. Now what? So it's just assessing, gas pedal, brake, and holding again in this recalibration, a gentle recalibration. So I just wanted to say with life balance, coming back to that, circling back, because people will say to me all the time, there's no such thing, it's BS. And I just think it's all about our definition. So if we think it's a perfectionistic sort of, once I get there place, then that's impossible, because lives are always shifting and changing, and hopefully we're evolving along with it.
The goal. Yeah. So what is your definition of balance for you?
Yeah, that's it. That's that ongoing gentle recalibration of my priorities and time.
So for you, what has that actually looked like? What, put that into actual tangible, play with that, what's the actual outcome of when you have those gentle recalibrations? What do you experience, like in your actual tangible day-to-day outcome?
Like how I know when I'm in balance? Is that what you mean?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely. I can tell you when I'm out of balance, I mean, we all know when we're really out of balance, we're just like, it's obvious, right? But for me, I start to recognize I'm falling out of balance when I sigh a lot, when I find myself like, like that.
That's
and
great awareness.
Yeah, it's so subtle, but I'm like, oh dear, pay attention to this, because it's that, I mean, it makes sense. First of all, my body is like literally trying to get a deeper breath unconsciously, because I must be breathing shallowly in my chest throughout my day. But it's also like life's feeling a little bit tedious, and that's not who I am. I'm typically like excited to do so many things, and so I know that's so yeah.
That's an indicator for you.
Yeah. And I just wanted to come, I was thinking about these continuum things, but I can come on to that on another point to finish. How I know I'm in balance is I have this sort of, lack of a better word, balance of positive energy, excitement. And there's also some downtime. So it can look different, but it's all about, if I have a really busy coaching and therapy schedule, I have a lot of people on my docket for that week. I probably on a Friday night don't want to hang out and talk to too many people, because I'm kind of talked out. So like knowing that and sort of looking ahead to see where, what might I be craving? But, there are also things too, like, and even with women and our menstrual cycles, sometimes we feel like we want to nest and get quiet and be in, and sometimes then we're in like social mode. So it's kind of knowing a bit about that too, which I'm not an expert in, but I'm aware of it. So trying to, so it just feels like, I don't know, it just feels like I'm, my body is energized, but not keyed up. Like I've had, 6 cups of coffee.
You're not amped, right? You don't feel that buzz.
Yes. So there's energy, engagement, aliveness. And sometimes that also means like a good tired, but it's a different tired than I'm exhausted. I am just like, so tapped out tired versus that is a good tired, like a well used up tired.
Yeah. As you were talking, I was thinking for myself, how do I know when I'm in balance? Because I'm someone who I love to do because I get excited. Like I'm not doing for the sake of just doing. I'm doing because I am authentically driven by my passions.
Yeah.
And so it can be hard for me to slow down because I purely get excited.
Yes.
And I just want to like keep writing, keep working, get more clients, do more content creation. Like I genuinely, I'm talking like from my professional life, but it bleeds over, right? And I'm in balance when I can stay energized without feeling depleted.
Yes.
I'm out of balance when I'm still at the same level of doing, but I've lost the voovness. You know, I don't know what I was trying to say there, but you know what I'm saying? Kind of like that, that life force that fills and lights me up.
Yep.
And if, you know, when I feel like it's a have to versus get to or want to, then I'm like, okay, indication I'm out of balance right now, because this thing that I normally love feels like a chore, or feels less exciting, or I don't feel as creative, or I don't feel, you know what, for me, it's when I'm in flow. Like, you know, it's that perfect alignment where I'm just in flow. And when I'm out of balance, things are not flowing. And that's a really great reminder for me to be like, okay, nothing is flowing right now. It's probably because I'm forcing it. And if I'm forcing it, it's not right. And if it's not right, I've got to recalibrate.
Exactly. And that I was going to say when I was thinking about that, you asked me that question, is there are all these continuums. And I talk about this in the book as well, as, you know, knowing who we are on that continuum of you and I are both these like doers and like to like really move and, you know, creative and all of this. And then there's some people who need a push, you know, who aren't that, you know, who need nudges constantly. So when you know where you fall in the continuum, it's like you always want to move more towards center on that balance continuum of we need to be really conscious of what we say yes to and what we're prioritizing, because we could easily overfill our plates and go out of balance. Whereas somebody else might have not enough and feel like, I don't know what to do with my days. I'm depressed. I'm bored because I don't put enough in there. So, you know, likewise, we have people who are risk averse and risk takers, knowing where you fall on that continuum, and you want to move more towards center. So, you know, it's knowing ourselves, coming back to that piece. And that's the only way we're going to get to know ourselves, is if we actually just literally stop what we're doing once in a while, hopefully on a daily basis. It's so true.
I don't know why that I want to share this, because it was coming up for me as you were saying that. But one of the areas I find women getting really stuck in out of balance is the expectation and pressure they put on themselves of what exercise looks for them.
Yes.
And I can't tell
I'm
you
raising my hand that I was totally in that camp. Yes.
And so for me, like part of that balance and what I try to encourage, but also incite self-awareness around is great, move your body, but give yourself permission to do it in a different way, right? Like I think we're so conditioned that if we're not pushing, we're not working.
Right.
And that does not serve us. And maybe we have different goals at different points of our health journey, but there's deep wisdom in knowing I'm still doing really good for my body by doing Pilates, and I'm not sweating, and I'm not, you know, increasing my heart rate. And so I think that's part of it that so many women get stuck in, is they think that that's taking the easy way out to like just go for a walk, or just do a yoga class, or just do Pilates. It's like, no, have the wisdom to know, do you have the physical energy to push, or do you need something restorative?
Right. Definitely. That completely goes on the continuum, and knowing, and just being tuned into the body, right? To know what is needed, and in that loving, compassionate way, like what feels compassionate and kind to myself right now. And if I'm exhausted, getting up and going for a run is not it, you know? I mean, right. So, And it's sometimes, again, it's like recalibrating through the seasons of life. I was just literally before we got on this call, I was having a conversation with a client who was talking about, she had some injuries, and she had to have surgeries on like exercise sort of issues. And she has to really rethink what it looks like for her. Is CrossFit is not doing it anymore. And it's like it's a grieving for her of herself, of that identity, of what she used to do, and what would feed her soul too. And so now kind of searching for other things that feel nurturing and also energizing, and finding all that too. Yeah.
Yeah. One of the things that I'm working on balance in my life, and you and I talked about it a few moments before hitting record, is, and it's something that I'm actually really focusing a lot of my work on, and what I'm offering to other women, is the balance of what it looks like in our motherhood journeys as we launch our children.
Yes.
And that's a huge area of balance that I don't think many women have an awareness around, how to hold space for their needs and their children's needs.
Mm-hmm.
And we as women feel guilty for having self-care, right? That whole self-care is selfish, horrible societal belief that we've somehow, many women have agreed to unknowingly and, not with their own awareness. And being able to create a harmony within who am I as a woman, and who am I as a mother and even a partner. And to me, like, this is such a fundamental challenge for women. Who am I outside of my roles? And can I give myself permission to honor my needs, maybe first, maybe for the first time ever?
Yes.
And that doesn't feel selfish, but that feels aligned, and yet still being there for those we love. Because I think that's where I see so many women being out of balance, because I think it's easy to feel the tangible imbalances in our schedule and our day and our lack of time and our lack of energy, and like taking it to those deeper, more, internal struggles of who am I? How do I balance the people in my life with myself without putting myself at the very bottom of that list?
Right. Which is, boundaries and mom guilt and all of these things, and how do I talk about, don't forget to play, that this is, because I can't tell you how many women I've worked with, especially, as kids maybe go into school, and if moms aren't, if they are working outside the home, but especially if they're decided to stay at home or to have that, that it's this like crickets, like I don't know what I like to do for fun. I don't know. I mean, other than get down and play Legos, which isn't my idea of a good time. I don't remember what I like to do. So it's like getting back to what feels playful for you and what does that look like, and taking that time for yourself, because, we always come back more energized and we're just happy to be reconnecting with our families again if we have had that chance to be who we are. And
I think, again, coming kind of full circle, the way to figure that out of who am I outside of these roles is through meditation and listening.
Yes. And experimenting, right? And getting out there and trying some things. And I always say, like, go try something you've always wanted to try, or what you used to like to do as a kid. And then if you don't like it, you never have to do it again. Just try it one time. Yes. Yeah, definitely. It's interesting to have my daughter, as I know yours is abroad, and my daughter is now her senior year of college, which she studied abroad her junior year. So she was gone for the academic year last year. And it was challenging. And it was,
where did she go?
She went to England.
Oh, wow.
And she plans to go back after her senior year. She loved it so much. She wants to go back for at least 2 years. So it was definitely a shift, of, okay, this it's always her home, but it's never really going to be her home again, I think. And that's something to digest.
Oh yeah. The mamahood journey is not for the faint of heart at all. And so, which, you and I are so aligned in so many ways. And I'm so thrilled for what you've put out into the world and for what you're sharing, because the more that mothers can practice the tools, the more they get to role model these tools, the more the ripple effect of how it spreads out. And we need these more than ever. It's COVID to me was the great pause, right? And opportunity to recalibrate our life in the most fundamental ways.
Yeah.
And I personally loved the gift of slowing down during that time. And yet so many people, and no judgment, just, human nature, just unconsciously got right back into the hamster wheel, forgetting there still is a choice in how you live your life.
Yes, definitely. There always
There always is. And so these breaks that you're offering and these tools that you are sharing in your books sound like really simple and yet tangible and yet powerful ways to make those conscious choices every moment of every day that you feel like this is a moment that I need to pay attention to.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Yes. And interesting to watch you as you're going through this now, kind of empty nesting it to some degree of, how you role model that too, because we need that. We need role models out there who, women who are still moms and yet are loving this kind of second opportunity, or I don't know what we want to call it. Like, this new evolution of phase in your life.
It is. I have a masterclass coming up at the end of September titled "What Now?" Because it's an opening. And again, every moment of our motherhood journey we're going through so many transitions and we forget that we can redefine ourselves along the way. Right. And it's not a singular definition of self. It's not a singular definition of motherhood. I mean, right, the most constant thing is change. So we've got to continually, or we get to continually adapt to and what we are. But for so much of our lives, transitions, different aspects feel overwhelming and scary, and it like shuts us down.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what now? This is awesome. And it still hurts. And yet, right, it's this and.
Right.
And the more tools we can have to get through the small, hard moments, the big life transition moments, I don't know. I have the mindset of it's all a gift because it's all practice.
Yes. Yes.
It's a mindset
I don't always
shift.
like the darn gift when we're in the middle of it, but I agree with you 100%.
So, Shonda, how can people find you and get access to your book and any other just final words of wisdom or, final message you'd like to share? Because I could keep talking to you forever. So if I don't cut us off, this will become like a 3-hour conversation.
Right. So my website, that's a great place to start. I'm also on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. And if you go to my website, I'll send a 5-minute guided meditation audio download and then a guided coffee mindful break. And there are 3 mindful breaks that you can choose from, one of each of the type that we talked about. So you can tune into yourself, see what's needed. Right. So definitely say
and
hi.
Those links will be in the show notes for sure. So we will have all of that available for people to get easy, quick access to that.
Yeah. And the books are wherever books are sold. You can find the books.
Oh, well, congratulations on the book. Always exciting and huge accomplishment. And thank you for sharing the Mindful Morning with me. I really appreciated it.
Oh, it's great to be with you, Jory.
All right, everyone. I hope that you got some great tips you can harness right now, because these things don't have to require big, things. It's simply an awareness and consciousness decision to just pause and breathe. So, all right, everyone, take care and be well.
To continue your journey forward, find Jory Rose on Facebook and Instagram to become part of her growing community. You can also gain access to her meditations, books, online classes, or to sign up for an upcoming retreat. Visit her at joryrose.com. That's JOREEROSE.com.